It was the kind of party that only existed in whispered rumors and glossy tabloid fantasies. Atop a private cliffside estate overlooking the Mediterranean, billionaire and tech mogul Adrian Cavendish threw himself a birthday celebration so extravagant that guests arrived by yacht or helicopter. Every attendee was someone: princes, actors, crypto tycoons, scientists, illusionists. The dress code: baroque masquerade, gilded masks, velvet cloaks, and secrecy woven into every stitch. Security was absurdly tight. At the entrance, armed guards scanned every guest with full-body metal detectors. Designer purses were searched, watches logged, no phones allowed. Inside, a room of mirrors reflected the glimmer of chandeliers, and the air smelled of saffron and sin. The real spectacle, however, was a priceless Cuban diamond necklace worn by Adrian's own fiancée, a piece insured for $15 million, rumored to have belonged to a 19th century queen. The necklace gleamed under the lights as she danced. Everyone saw it. Photographers, pre-approved and closely watched, captured it. The crowd toasted to it. And then, right before the clock struck midnight, it was gone. She didn't feel a thing. The necklace hadn't fallen. It hadn't slipped. It had vanished. Within moments, the music stopped. The room froze. Guards sealed the exits. Every guest, even those with diplomatic immunity, was searched again. The necklace never reappeared. In its place was a perfect replica made of cubic zirconia. Adrian was furious. His fiancée fainted. And in that grand hall filled with some of the richest and smartest people in the world, no one could explain what happened. Who stole it? How did they pull it off? And perhaps the real question: why did the thief want to be seen stealing it in front of everyone?
There are crimes that slip through the cracks of logic. Thefts so elegant, so impossible, they feel like fiction. But what if I told you this one happened in front of hundreds of witnesses, with cameras rolling, in a mansion where no one could leave unnoticed? This is not just a story about a missing necklace. It's about ego, deception, and a perfectly orchestrated illusion that turned a billionaire's birthday into a personal nightmare. The night should have been unforgettable for all the right reasons. Adrian Cavendish, a man whose empire spans from AI satellites to vintage wine, curated every second of the evening to showcase his power. Every guest was hand-picked. Every hallway had eyes. Every glass of champagne was chilled to the same temperature. But beneath the glitter and gold, someone was playing a different game, one that Adrian didn't see coming. As we unravel this mystery, you'll walk beside me through corridors of wealth, masks of charm, and secrets that burn brighter than diamonds. The deeper we dig, the more we'll discover that this wasn't just about stealing a necklace. It was about stealing control. And in a world where power is the ultimate currency, that theft is far more dangerous. So stay close, look for what's not being said, and whatever you do, don't assume the obvious is the truth. Because in this story, the masks weren't just costumes, they were clues. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you love unraveling impossible crimes like this one. Hit the like button if you're already suspicious of someone, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. What city and country are you solving this mystery in? Let's begin. The Cavendish estate was unlike anything most of the guests had ever seen, even among billionaires. Perched on a cliff overlooking the cobalt sea of the Amalfi Coast, the estate stretched like a Roman palace reborn. Fountains of obsidian glass, corridors lined with curated art that changed color with the light, and a ballroom roof that opened to reveal the stars. But on the night of Adrian's 45th birthday, it was transformed into a realm of masks, secrets, and games. Guests were ferried in from a private dock or flown in by helicopter to a hidden pad behind the estate. The invitation read, "Leave your name behind. Bring only your finest mask and your sharpest mind." The theme, Venetian masquerade with a modern twist. Think velvet gowns laced with fiber optics, hand-crafted gold leaf masks embedded with tiny sensors, and tuxedos cut with precision of military uniforms. And yet, with all that power, all that surveillance, Adrian failed to notice the one thing he should have seen coming. Someone else had come to play. Among the guests was a man in a crimson mask shaped like a fox. No one knew his name. But then again, that was part of the fun. The guest list was anonymous, and Adrian had ensured it would stay that way, to let people be their truest selves, he'd said. The man in the fox mask stayed close to the shadows, danced with 3 different women, laughed at all the right jokes, and kept glancing at the diamond necklace.
The necklace, the Queen's gift, as Adrian called it, sat on the collarbone of his fiancée, Elise Marchand. Elise was a former French model turned gallery curator, known for her icy beauty and rumored temper. She wore the necklace like it belonged to her skin. 6 pear-shaped diamonds shimmered beneath her collar, framed by a web of smaller stones that caught the light with every movement. The piece had been displayed in the Louvre for decades. Adrian had bought it privately, at a price whispered only among billionaires. At 9:47 p.m., the first toast was made. Adrian clinked a glass and called for attention. The room fell into a hush, broken only by the slow, haunting notes of a string quartet suspended above the dance floor in a glass cage. He said, "To art, to love, and to the rarest treasures of all." His gaze lingered on Elise. Cameras, discreet but ever-present, captured the moment. The necklace gleamed. Elise smiled. Somewhere, a fox watched. By 10:12 p.m., the room was ablaze with motion. Dancers spun in velvet circles. Waiters moved like ghosts between them. Laughter echoed off the high walls. The air smelled of citrus and something else, something older, muskier. Incense, maybe, or fear. At exactly 11:59 p.m., the music shifted. A bell chimed 12 slow times. Elise raised her glass, lips parted in delight, her head thrown back in laughter. When she lowered it, the necklace was gone. No one saw it happen, not even Elise. Her hand flew to her neck instinctively, and then froze. Her face turned pale beneath her mask. A scream tried to claw its way out of her throat, but never made it. She staggered backward. In its place sat a perfect copy, same shape, same color, but dull under the chandelier. A cheap trick. And just like that, the game had begun.
The silence that followed was unnatural. In a room usually charged with champagne-fueled chatter, the hush felt like a vacuum, sucking the air from every corner. Adrian's face hardened before Elise even said a word. His eyes fell on the necklace, then on her trembling hands. He didn't ask if she was sure. Adrian Cavendish was not a man who questioned instinct. He simply turned to the head of security and gave a single nod. With that signal, the estate transformed. Doors sealed with magnetic locks, emergency protocols activated. A quiet female voice, smooth, emotionless, echoed through hidden speakers. Security lockdown engaged. Please remain calm. Guards stationed at the exits stiffened. Every vehicle, boat, and aircraft tied to the property was put on hold. No one was leaving. Some guests tried to laugh it off. "Surely it's just misplaced," someone said near the champagne fountain. But the tone was forced. Eyes darted to the exits, to the guards with their hands near their holsters. People began to realize this wasn't theater. This was real. Adrian Cavendish, known for being ruthlessly efficient, had trapped the elite of Europe, Asia, and Silicon Valley in a palace of masks. And someone among them had just played him. Adrian took the stage again, his voice cold and precise. He said, "One of you has just committed a theft under my roof, under my watch, and during my celebration." He paced slowly. "There are only two possibilities. Either you're a master illusionist or a complete fool. Either way, you will not be leaving this house until that necklace is returned." To say the room turned tense would be an understatement. Some guests tried to blend into the crowd. Others became suddenly vocal, indignant. Elise sat on a white velvet chaise, shaking, holding the fake necklace like it was poison. The fox-masked man was no longer dancing. He stood near a column, arms folded, unreadable. Security began sweeping the room. Guests were escorted in pairs to side chambers for scanning. Drones were activated, buzzing overhead with silent rotors, scanning for metallic particles or hidden objects. It was invasive, but no one protested, not yet. They all knew Adrian had influence beyond money. He had power in places people didn't speak about publicly. As hour bled into hour, it became clear that no one had the necklace, not in their pockets, not under their clothes, not in the restrooms or behind the curtains. Staff members were triple-checked, waiters interrogated, even the musicians were searched and isolated. Nothing. At 2:03 a.m., a new piece of evidence surfaced, or rather, failed to surface. The security footage from the ballroom, which had been recording from multiple angles, glitched between 11:56 and 12:00, 4 minutes. Every camera, every angle, static. After that, it resumed as if nothing had happened. Adrian stared at the monitors, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like stone. "Who has access to the surveillance system?" he asked. Only two names came up, the head of security and Adrian himself. No staff, no guests. The system was isolated from the internet. It was built to be tamper-proof. And yet, 4 minutes had vanished from the record. At 2:17 a.m., a new announcement. Adrian made another.
He said, "We are not dealing with a common thief." He said, "We're dealing with a performance. Someone has planned this for months, maybe years, and I promise you, whoever it is will regret choosing tonight." But even as he spoke, his confidence wavered, because deep inside, he knew something that the others didn't know. The real necklace wasn't just a jewel. It contained a hidden chip, one that should have been untraceable, unless someone had known about it all along.
By dawn, the party no longer resembled a celebration. Half-empty glasses littered tables like battlefield casualties. Women in stilettos curled their aching feet on antique sofas. Men who once laughed over billion-dollar mergers now sat in silence, staring at their reflections in the mirrored walls. The masks had come off, figuratively, if not yet literally, and the truth began to bare its teeth. Adrian's private investigator arrived by helicopter just after sunrise. Her name was Yara Lang, and she wasn't part of any official law enforcement. She didn't need to be. Ex-Interpol, fluent in 6 languages, and known for her ability to make CEOs cry in under 10 minutes, Yara entered the estate with a steel suitcase and a colder stare. She refused champagne, removed her shoes, and started from the beginning. First, she reconstructed the timeline. Elise last felt the necklace at 11:58 p.m. The clock struck midnight at exactly 12:00. Between those 2 minutes, the necklace vanished, yet the security footage had blacked out during that very interval. Convenient. Too convenient. Yara reviewed the footage frame by frame, particularly the seconds before the glitch. One image caught her attention, a reflection in the ballroom's curved glass ceiling, a hand, gloved in red, reaching toward Elise's neck. Not the hand of the man dancing with her. This one came from behind and disappeared just as quickly. The angle was impossible unless someone had been standing on the balcony that circled the room above. But that balcony was supposed to be off-limits. Adrian's head of security insisted the balcony had been locked. The doors were alarmed. Yara checked the sensors herself. No breach, no movement detected. But something still didn't sit right. She climbed the spiral staircase to the balcony and walked the perimeter. Dust had been disturbed. A single scuff mark, faint, circular, marred the marble floor. She crouched. Someone had stood here, briefly. Long enough to lean over the railing, maybe.
She requested the guest list, the real one, not the anonymous invitation roster. Adrian hesitated. He said, "Some of these people can't be named." Yara didn't blink. "Then I'll name them myself, one by one, publicly." She got the list. The fox-masked guest was still on the property. His real name was Elias Rowe, a retired illusionist turned tech consultant. Yara pulled his file. Former stage name was Renard the Red, known for misdirection routines so convincing that he once made a live panther vanish on television using only mirrors and light. Arrested twice for fraud, never convicted. Yara interviewed him in the solarium. Elias was calm, too calm. He said, "I didn't steal anything." He smiled behind half-lidded eyes. "But I do admire whoever did. Beautiful execution. No fear, just precision. Makes you wonder what else they could get away with, doesn't it? Yara watched him carefully. You were near the column at midnight. That's where the hand in the reflection came from. Elias shrugged. A fox always watches, but he doesn't always bite. His voice was melodic, practiced, like someone who'd learned long ago how to keep secrets inside every syllable. As she left, he called out, "You know, the real trick isn't stealing something. It's making the world believe you didn't." Yara turned, her eyes sharp. "That's not a confession." He winked. "Of course not. It's a compliment to the magician you're still looking for."
While Adrian raged and security doubled down, Yara moved in silence. She didn't need to bark orders. She listened, observed, let the tension in the house ferment until the guests, too tired to pretend, began slipping truths between sighs and sips of cold espresso. It was in the quiet moments, a glance too long, a whisper too hushed, that the real story began to form taste. Yara turned her attention to Elise Marquand. The woman at the center of the storm had barely slept. Her once perfect hair now clung to her face, her mascara smudged into shadows. But Yara wasn't interested in pity. She was interested in contradictions. Why hadn't Elise noticed the switch? How does someone wearing $15 million around their neck not feel it being unclasped? Elise hesitated at first, then confessed something unexpected. "Adrian didn't buy the necklace for me. He bought it for himself. It was a symbol of ownership, display. I wore it because he asked me to, and because I knew he liked to show off what he believed he controlled." It wasn't just a necklace, Yara realized. It was a message. And whoever stole it wasn't simply after the gem. They were making a statement to Adrian himself. This was personal. Digging into Elise's background, Yara discovered a past connection to Elias Rowe. 5 years earlier, when she was curating an exhibit in Berlin, Elias had been one of the featured performance artists. There were photos, Elise with a softer smile, Elias without a mask. Nothing romantic, but something familiar, a shared history Adrian had never mentioned.
At the same time, a new piece of the puzzle emerged. The scuff mark on the marble balcony, a perfect match to the specialized rubber found on a magician's lift shoe, designed to grip, elevate, and vanish in seconds. Someone had brought stagecraft into a crime scene, and Elias had once patented that very type of shoe. But Yara wasn't convinced he acted alone. She returned to the footage from earlier in the evening, before the blackout. She played it frame by frame, this time watching Elise instead of the necklace. And then she saw it. At 11:40 p.m., Elise reached toward her collar and adjusted something, a motion too precise to be casual. She wasn't fixing the necklace, she was checking it. Later, when confronted, Elise confessed, "It wasn't the real one. Not then. Adrian had me wear a replica all night. He kept the real necklace in a safe upstairs." Yara leaned in. "Then why did you scream?" Elise looked down.
because when I felt the replica had been swapped for another replica, I knew the real one had already been stolen. That changed everything. The heist didn't happen at midnight. It happened earlier, maybe even before the party began. The blackout was a distraction, a sleight of hand. The panic was part of the performance. The real theft had occurred in silence, beneath layers of ego and illusion. Yara returned to Adrian, who stood alone in his office, watching the sunrise from behind bulletproof glass. She said, "You never trusted your guests, but you trusted your system too much. Someone got in through the only door you thought was locked. Elise." Adrian didn't respond. He simply poured himself a drink and said, "So you're saying I threw a party and invited my own downfall?" Yara nodded. "No, you paid for it." It was nearly noon when Yara gathered everyone in the grand ballroom once more. The light now streamed through the glass ceiling, blindingly bright against the pale marble, casting sharp shadows on tired faces and glitter-stained gowns. What had begun as the party of the century now felt like the final act of a tragedy. But Yara wasn't there to mourn. She was there to perform her own kind of magic, the truth. Elias Rose stood calmly, his crimson mask now hanging from his fingers like a forgotten joke. Adrian hovered near the stage, pale, silent. Elise sat on the edge of a chaise, arms folded, every inch of her posture defensive. The other guests whispered behind fans, behind hands, behind veils, like members of a cult awaiting revelation. Yara's voice was even, sharp, meant to cut. This wasn't a theft of opportunity. It was a theft by design. And it didn't happen at midnight. It happened earlier, during the costume fittings. The room shifted. Some guests looked confused, others visibly paled. Each guest was given their mask and cloak upon arrival, but one of you brought your own, one that matched the fabric, the style, and the cut perfectly, because you helped design them. She pointed to the fashion consultant, a minor guest no one had paid attention to. A woman in her 50s, known only as Mademoiselle V. She stiffened. You were hired to coordinate the aesthetic of the evening. You had access to every cloak, every guest list, every fitting room. You worked with Elise, you worked with Adrian, and you worked with someone else long before this night. Elias stepped forward, no longer smirking. He said, "Vera taught me everything I know. She was the mind behind every illusion I ever performed. She disappeared from the public eye years ago, but she never stopped planning her final act." Vera didn't run. She didn't deny it. Instead, she removed her gloves and revealed a burn scar on her palm, the result of an old stunt gone wrong. "I told Adrian the necklace was cursed," she said quietly. He laughed. Of course he did. Men like him always think they own everything they touch. But he never owned me, and he never owned Elise. Gasps erupted. Elise looked stunned. Yara continued. The real necklace was never in the safe. It was smuggled out inside the velvet lining of a cloak, one Vera handled personally. She passed it to a guest who left early due to illness and flew out before the lockdown. The fake necklace on Elise was swapped twice, once before the party by Elise herself, and once more by Vera during the blackout to complete the illusion of a dramatic midnight heist. Adrian exploded. "You used my party, my fiancée!" Yara turned to him. "No, you used them. Vera just rewrote the script." Elias added, "And unlike your satellites, Adrian, people don't like being watched forever." Vera walked forward, unafraid. The necklace is gone, melted down, scattered across a dozen buyers in a dozen countries. You won't find it. She looked at Elise. "You were always more than a trophy." Elise whispered, "Why didn't you tell me you were part of this?" Vera smiled, "Because you would have tried to stop me." Adrian wanted justice, but Yara reminded him there was no footage, no physical evidence, no witness willing to testify. The guests wouldn't talk. No one wanted to be on record. And the only person who could link the crime to Vera had just walked out the front gate in silence, wearing a fox mask and carrying nothing at all.
The estate returned to silence in the days that followed. The guests slipped away. Contracts were signed to ensure discretion, and the world continued to believe that Adrian Cavendish's birthday had been a dazzling success. No one spoke of the theft. No one dared. In elite circles, the illusion of control matters more than justice. Elise left Adrian 2 weeks later. No press release, no scandal, just a quiet exit. She boarded a plane to Morocco under her maiden name and was never seen again at a gala. Adrian replaced his staff. He installed new systems, but the empty pedestal where the necklace had once been remained untouched. A private reminder that for all his wealth and power, someone had outplayed him. Yara closed her file without a final page. There was nothing more to prove. No charges to file, no evidence to process. Just a magician's grin echoing in her memory, and a whisper that still haunted the ballroom walls. The real trick isn't stealing something, it's making the world believe you didn't. In the end, the heist was never about the diamond. It was about the man who believed he couldn't be fooled, and the woman who finally showed him she could.